Hey everyone, in this video I want to talk about visualization and the subconscious mind. Now I'm a more practical minded person, so this sort of stuff obviously came up while I was researching self-development and wealth creation and this stuff came up, law of attraction and all that. And at first I was like, okay, but over time I realized that there's definitely some science behind this. Why does this work? What is this subconscious programming? Before I get to that, I want to just point to a few successful people that have actually utilized this very successfully. There's the actor Steve Carey. He did Dumb and Dumber and a lot of other shows. This man was always in the self-help section of the bookstore. More importantly, he would always visualize. So every night he would drive around really uh, prosperous neighborhoods and he would see all these mansions and he would envision like he was already there. Like he owned one of those houses and he envisioned that all these agents and Hollywood directors wanted him to star in his movie. And at the time he was broke poor. And over time, he got there. He did all sorts of stuff too. He wrote a check to himself, and it was addressed to himself, and it literally ended up with him getting that money. He addressed a fake check, I believe it was $2 million to himself. And you can see the whole interview on Oprah on YouTube. But he's not the only man who did this. I was listening to a lesser known billionaire, and his name's Bill Bartman, and he did this 1 hour speech. I bought it on iTunes. And he said the same thing. When he was poor, he and his girlfriend would also drive around rich neighborhoods. Brian Tracy, he's a very well-known success coach. He was a very successful businessman and salesman before that, and now he's a public speaker. He did the same thing with his girlfriend. He would go to house auctions and open houses of neighborhoods that they could not afford at all. They lived in a trailer. And long story short, within a couple years, he was able to live in a very prosperous house because he would walk around that and program his subconscious mind to envision himself at that state. And there's others who have done it too in different ways. Steve Harvey, there's also the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. Some people encourage you to just draw out or take a picture of a body that you want. That's huge in the fitness community. Or just have a trinket of some sort that reminds you every day of this occurring, and it just puts that visualization in your head on what you want to achieve. So I highly recommend it. Check it out. And I think the big issue is, why does this work, and how come it's not working for everyone? I think let's address the second one first. I think one of the big issues is that most people don't do it after they hear it. In fact, I heard this myself almost a year ago, and I was like, this is interesting, this is cool, I'll do it. But if you look at my track record in the last year, maybe I did it one off every 2 or 3 months, depending on if I had time and if I was reminded or remembered, which is not that good. Maybe on a few good weeks when I was more committed, I did it 2 or 3 days in a row, but that's it. So the point is, I think no one actually does it after they hear it because it's tough to stay committed and consistent with things, and that's one of the reasons why people fail. So how do you do it? For me specifically, I stay within the lines of the people I trust. So I look for credibility and relevance. And that usually means people like Napoleon Hill, who have studied 500 plus of the wealthiest people in the world for 20 plus years, and then he wrote a book on it. We're talking people like Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie. names that still permeate to this day because they made billions of dollars. I don't go where a lot of the law of attraction people go, which is to the really impractical side of things. That's a very niche community, and what I mean by that is there's tons of books that are written by people who have really no accomplishments themselves, and they just write books on law of attraction, and other people are, for whatever reason, convinced to read these books. And so I keep within those practical means. As far as the scientific and psychological research behind subconscious programming, psychology hasn't really, completely caught up. Some psychologists reject this because it's anecdotal. However, that doesn't mean it hasn't been rejected or disproved. It simply has not been proved yet. And arguably, there's some logic behind why it would make sense. Like if you're reminded every day, especially if you program it into your subconscious numerous times a day, it will realign your focus so that you are aware more often of when you're goofing off task, or when you're in front of an opportunity that is really helpful to you that you would have otherwise missed. Anyhow, here's how I do it, and I think this is where people do it wrong, in the sense that this is what they tell you to do, and again, they don't do it. As I mentioned before, one is consistency. They don't do it 2 times a day. Second thing is, of course, the specifics of how you do it. So primarily, they tell you that you need a deadline, you need a specific amount of money, you have to envision it like you already have it and own it, and you need to give something of value in exchange for it, like your specific services or teachings, or maybe your specific skills at a specific task. And then you say that all aloud with enthusiasm and emotion. And most people miss out on one of those things. They either don't give a specific deadline, they don't envision it like they already have it, thus programming it into your subconscious, or any of the other things I mentioned. And I think the last thing I want to just emphasize is that make sure that when you do it, you really do it with enthusiasm and emotion, because as Napoleon Hill says, if you don't, it just comes off bland and it's completely pointless. And make sure that you do it as if you're already in possession of it. I think one thing, and Brian Tracy goes into more detail on how he does it, and he basically says that you want to act like you're already there. Now, I don't think this means spending money or not managing your money, but acting and behaving as if you're already wealthy. So how would you behave differently? And this gets to dangerous ground, because some people will that means, oh, I'll just spend whatever money I have frivolously. I think what he really means is you can still stick with your budget and manage your money properly. I think there's a lot of thrifty but smart, wealthy individuals who still spend their money wisely and control it. It simply means that you take care of yourself, you act differently, and you look at the world differently, rather from a scarcity mentality where you're constantly trying to take from other people, or you're constantly you're scared of poverty and all this stuff. You switch the frame, and I think if you start acting like that and behaving like that, it really switches your mindset and what you aim for, your purposes. So, for example, a lot of billionaires, they from the get-go have looked at money as a secondary outcome. It's always been something bigger, and because of the change that they've brought to the world, like with Elon Musk and his electric car and all his other solar powered inventions that have helped reduce global warming and reduce pollution, the side effect of that is that he has created a business that generates billions of dollars. And so his main goal was never that focus, and because of it, the money came. So rather than skimping on things, a scarcity mentality will push you towards different means. because if you're, pinching dollars, you can obviously start thinking along the lines of how can I make money whatever way I can, and you'll start looking at things in the wrong lens, stealing, cheating for pennies on the dollar. So keep those things in mind, and that's all I got to say. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.